Our next guest is the author of the award-winning clown noir mystery series, Rex Coco, Private Clown, as well as the politically correct Bedtime Stories trilogy. A former columnist for Chicago Magazine, he has also read extensively at Chicago's live lit events. You may recognize him standing over there. During the season, he publishes and curates a blog of baseball poetry and doggerel at bardball.com. Now let's root for James Finn Garner. Good height.
Smooth segue.
All right.
I like it. I do run a website called bardball.com. A lot of baseball poetry is about playing catch with your dad and the long links between generations and the nobility of Lou Gehrig and things like that. We write doggerel, which is supposed to be short, funny, topical, and generally sloppy. So, what you got? So we'd like to write about scandals, eating disorders, people who get kicked off teams, off buses, just generally sleazy stuff. And we have a lot of fun with it because the team needs it. We started it because we ended up in emails between friends of mine and I with about 15 limericks about Barry Bonds and his bionic body. And we wanted to find a use for it. And then we opened it up and put the site up, and then people from around the nation can contribute whatever they like to it. Oh, I lost my page of paper. So let me check my code. Hold on. Oh. Okay, talk much. Well, that was fruitless. So anyway,
You lost your piece of paper.
I lost my piece of paper. I only have a book of poems, but I lost my piece of paper. Talking about doggerel. Talking about some of our contributors over the years. We get 95-year-old grannies sending us things. I've had school kids send us things, which are very sweet. One day over the transom, I got a poem from the Poet Laureate of Canada. Well, there is one. You laughed. The Poet Laureate of Canada, George Bowering. And he sent me this very nice, stupid poem, which, you know, he couldn't put in the official magazines or anything. It's called Tipping a Few with Clue. Once I had a double brewski with my buddy Ted Klazuski. Then I got completely urban with my buddy Pedro Bourbon. Next I had a jug of rum with my buddy Big Mike Lum. But I've never used a spike with my buddy Ozark Ike. So, thank you. My other piece of paper had a lot of more topical things, but I don't have it, so I'm going to read you something I wrote that happened a couple of years ago with the closer of the Cincinnati Reds, Aroldis Chapman, who can throw it about 105 miles per hour, and he's a very fearful relief pitcher. However, during one game, before the game, somebody delivered a couple of dozen guava cream cheese pastries to the clubhouse, and he ate 18 of them and was unable to pitch later that afternoon. So I figured this needed to get memorialized in a poem, right? So Chapman might have nerves of steel, but Munchies, his Achilles heel. Before the Phils 2 homers laced, he ate 18 guava cream cheese pastries. Now Bambino gobbled beer and dogs, Yardbird the only dish for bogs. But to abate your pulse like lava, try pastries filled with cheese and guava. Closers are a breed apart, a fiery mix of arm and heart. If victory's what you long to taste, be wary of inhaling pastries. And now I would like to read something I didn't write called Casey on the Juice. A little background. Casey at the Bat is America's probably most famous poem aside from The Visit from St. Nicholas. It was written in 1888 pseudonymously for the San Francisco Examiner. It published, no one cared about it. It was published in New York, no one cared about it except one man clipped it out of the paper and gave it to a friend of his who was a vaudevillian. And because at that Vaudevillian's theater soon, the White Sox and the Giants were going to go for a show. So they thought, oh, this would be nice for the baseball players. So that man, whose name was DeWitt Hopper, who was a comic elocutionist, for all you kids looking for careers out there, comic elocutionist, read Casey at the Bat. It was a huge hit. He read it for the next 45 years of his career, more than 10,000 times by his own estimation, and he always clocked in at 5 minutes 40 seconds. And if you've seen clips of the man reading it, a comic elocutionist kind of looks like Herman Munster speaking like a Shakespearean actor. So there's lots of things like that. So I'm gonna have to go off mic while I do this because I think I'm off book on this, and I would like to become a comic elocutionist in my next career.
It may not go much further.
Yeah, well, if we're lucky, no one will find out any further what's going on. So this is Casey on the Juice by Hart Seeley. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that year. The lineup had no hitting threats, the fans no cause to cheer. So when Cooney tore his hamstring and Barrows broke his wrist, the writers started calling for the brass to be dismissed. The season stood in jeopardy with one last hope in sight. If only one great slugger could regain his former might. One shot of horse testosterone, one jab in the caboose. The team would get its mojo back with Casey on the juice. But Flynn had tested positive, and also Jimmy Blake. Their samples glowed with hormones like uranium yellow cake. The infield faced suspension, the outfield in decay. The team was dead unless some source came forth with antler spray. But Flynn unleashed 10 lawyers to the wonderment of all, and Blake, with much persuasion, had his cousin take the fall. And when the last indictment quashed, a miracle occurred. The Mudville Nine remained within one game of placing third. Within the team's top management, there arose a fevered din. We've got to find some slugger who can drive some runners in. A deep-voiced man with swollen breasts and beard as thick as rope. We've got to bring back Casey with his bloodstream full of dope. He'd all but been forgotten in the pennant race of late. No team considered signing him. He'd last hit 208. He couldn't touch the breaking ball nor move much to his right. He'd shrunken by some 30 pounds. He looked like Betty White. They found him in a halfway house for recovering alcoholics, where he'd been kicking Andriol and street sale anabolics. They offered him a contract that would run from day to day, but his sample had to come back clean and for him to play. There was ease in Casey's manner, though he tried to be discreet. The testers watched him carefully. They figured he would cheat. The sample showed diuretics well above the zone of red. That ain't my urine, said Casey. Strike one, the clinic said. The pundits, amped on Ritalin, fumed fury at the game. He'd never see another pitch nor make the Hall of Fame. Ban him! Ban the juicer! Came the fervent wail. And it's likely they'd have done it had not Casey looked so frail. With a smile of Christian charity, old Casey's visit shone. He chalked it up to linseed oil, not horse testosterone. He suffered from a restless leg, took pills to beat the flu. But the next sample showed growth hormone, and the lab coats roared, "Strike two!" Fraud, cried the gin-fueled writers, and the bloggers echoed, fraud. But Casey's hired publicist denounced the tests as flawed. And now his face grew stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain. They knew he'd not let himself test positive again. And the smile is gone from Casey's lips. His eyes like burst balloons. He downed 10 quarts of seltzer after eating 50 prunes. His body is a furnace, his bladder surely stressed. And now the world awaits the hard results of Casey's test. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. And people play the game who are of normal weight and height. And somewhere fans are laughing at peace with what they've got. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey's tested hot. Thank you.